Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned. A workshop held on Thursday at the National Skills Development Center was used to sensitize senior administrative staff and the Committee on Positive Discipline on the Effective Schools Framework and its implications, juvenile justice reform, and existing laws and conventions pertaining to child safeguarding and protection. Rochelle Gonzalez tells us more in this report.
A workshop was held on Thursday morning, targeting the heads of departments of the Ministry of Education in a bid to sensitize them on positive discipline. Acting Education Officer for CAMDU, Sophia Edwards Gabriel, said for the duration of the workshop, facilitators will be focusing on the Convention of the Rights of the Child. She said many people have heard about the convention, but they do not know or understand what it entails.
We are aware that we've been implementing effective schools, or some schools refer to it as child-friendly schools, across the island, and we've been doing so for a number of years. One of the key areas that we consider when we are looking at effective schools is implementing positive discipline and school-wide positive behavior interventions and support. We felt that it was necessary for the ministry staff to also be aware of what's happening in the schools, and so that we can have a better understanding and to provide that kind of support from the administrative level. Therefore, we've organized this activity today. That convention and the Convention of the Rights of the Child speak to the whole idea of having respect for children, providing them with dignity, and that also includes how we discipline them, how we groom them, how we protect them.
Edwards Gabriel said on the topic of positive discipline, this too is another matter which is frequently misunderstood.
Many people misunderstand the concept of positive discipline, and many people believe that when we speak about positive discipline, we're talking about necessarily and only no corporal punishment. But positive discipline really focuses on how we teach children to behave in the ways that we want them to behave. If children do not understand, for example, language or how to speak, we teach them. If they do not understand any other subject area, we teach them. They go to school and we teach them all other areas. However, we never teach behavior. We just believe that children are supposed to behave in a particular way and they're supposed to know what is expected of them. So positive discipline takes a proactive approach to helping children behave in the way that we want them to behave. And to do so, we are supposed to first let them know what is expected of them, show them how to engage in these behaviors, engage in correction and scaffolding and support until they have these behaviors as part of the regular repertoire of behaviors.
The education officer said the workshop falls in line with the ongoing controversial decision to ban corporal punishment in schools across the island.
We currently have quite a number of schools that are using school-wide positive behavior support and intervention, and we have a number of schools that actually do not use corporal punishment. So we are moving to provide, I suppose, support to those schools that are still lagging along so that they can be on par with that. You need to be able to build relationships with children, with persons generally. And once you have positive relationships and you understand the needs of whoever you're interacting with, then you understand how to relate to them. They have to also take responsibility, because we are not saying that we don't hold children accountable for their actions. This is not what we're saying. We're saying that there is a process that which needs to be followed, and so if we can create these connections, build these positive relationships, create the climate and the environment for children to accept discipline and to understand, and more importantly, we also need to understand the developmental stages of children. At different ages, children have different capacities to learn, to think, to behave, and in many cases children engage in what we call age-appropriate behaviors, and sometimes we as adults forget that these behaviors are age-appropriate and that we need to guide them.
2019 marks the 30th year since the Convention of the Rights of the Child has been recognized in St. Lucia. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez.
Looking to close off Youth Month in grand style, the National Youth Council will embark on a National Youth Conference, which is being touted as an event for youth by youth. The event looks to host both local and regional facilitators and will cover a wide range of issues affecting youth throughout the region and the diaspora. Solange Alfred reports.
The theme for the 2019 Caribbean Youth Conference is promoting a sustainable and innovative Caribbean through youth participation, passion and creativity. A media briefing held on Thursday, April 25th, offered SLNYC PRO and Caribbean Youth Conference Media Relations Officer Latoya Charles the opportunity to highlight key features that made Caribbean Youth Conference 2018 a success and 2019 an event to look forward to.
We just want to talk about the conference last year. I could say personally that it was a success, not only for the NYC, but for the planning committee, to see young persons from across the Caribbean come to St. Lucia to be able to meet with other young leaders to discuss issues they're facing within their countries and come up with position papers, come up with plans of action. And of course, the most famous part of our conference last year was Straight Up Talks, where we were able, as young persons, to gather and actually speak to our leaders, our Honorable Prime Minister and various leaders of government business. And I think that was one of our main highlights, that young persons don't usually get the platform to do that and have direct conversation with those persons. So I think that is something we're looking forward to this year again.
Adding to the conversation, SLNYC First Vice President and Caribbean Youth Conference Chairperson Nias Alfred says the upcoming Caribbean Youth Conference looks to foster innovative solutions to the many issues outlined by youth during the event.
We get asked a question all of the time, the Caribbean Youth Conference, does it really benefit young people in St. Lucia? Yes, it is branded as a Caribbean Youth Conference because we realize that the problems we face as young people in St. Lucia are not unique to us. These are problems faced by young people from across the Caribbean. But at the heart of the conference, it is a St. Lucian conference because over 84% of the participants are St. Lucians, and they come from St. Lucians from all across different backgrounds. Young St. Lucians who are unemployed, St. Lucians who come from youth organizations, who come from grassroots club, so the young professionals. Across all spectrums of youth in St. Lucia, we have representation on the grassroots level, and we have, for this year, over 150 young St. Lucians taking part and benefiting from this very important event.
Alfred says that this year's conference will be one with a slight difference, with the introduction of community outreach to be done by participants. The conference will be hosted at the Coco Palm Hotel and takes place from 28th to 30th April. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Solaj Alfred.
Now, it is often said that when the U.S. sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold, and so we're keeping an eye on how the presidential race is shaping up. Who will take on U.S. President Donald Trump in the 2020 election? It looks like it could be former Vice President Joe Biden. Biden is now a 2020 presidential candidate. He released a 3-minute campaign video on Thursday morning highlighting the 2017 white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, and President Trump's response that there were, quote, very fine people on both sides, end quote.
Charlottesville, Virginia is home to the author of one of the great documents in human history. We know it by heart. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. We've heard it so often, it's almost a cliche, but it's who we are. We haven't always lived up to these ideals. Jefferson himself didn't, but we have never before walked away from them. Charlottesville is also home to a defining moment for this nation in the last few years. It was there on August of 2017 we saw Klansmen and white supremacists and neo-Nazis come out in the open. Their crazed faces, illuminated by torches, veins bulging and bearing the fangs of racism, chanting the same anti-Semitic bile heard across Europe in the 30s. And they were met by a courageous group of Americans, and a violent clash ensued. And a brave young woman lost her life. And that's when we heard the words of the President of the United States that stunned the world and shocked the conscience of this nation. He said there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides. Very fine people on both sides? With those words, the President of the United States assigned a moral equivalence between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it. And in that moment, I knew the threat to this nation was unlike any I had ever seen in my lifetime. I wrote at the time that we're in the battle for the soul of this nation. Well, that's even more true today. We are in the battle for the soul of this nation. I believe history will look back on 4 years of this president and all he embraces as an aberrant moment in time. But if we give Donald Trump 8 years in the White House, he will forever and fundamentally alter the character of this nation, who we are, and I cannot stand by and watch that happen.
Biden is the 21st candidate for the Democratic nomination, and polls right now show he is one of the favorites to win. You're watching the Hot 7 Nightly News. Stay with us because Tennyson Glasgow is coming up with all the sporting action.